And two other proposed legislation are generating apprehension and discourse among Nigerians. They are the bills to amend the law establishing the Nigerian Press Council, that's the NPC, and the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC. Media practitioners argue that the envisaged amendments will kill press freedom in Nigeria and render journalists captives in the land. They describe the provisions in both amendment bills as draconian. The Nigerian Guild of Editors argued that while the sponsors of the bills claimed that the amendments are aimed at moderating the recklessness of the media, the bills are actually criminalizing journalism practice in Nigeria. And in a concerted move, all Nigerian newspapers this Monday in their front pages drew attention to the danger of the two bills. The coalition of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Nigerian Guild of Editors, and Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria say what the National Assembly wants to achieve with the two bills is information blackout. In their view, it is not just against the media, but about society's right to know and be heard.
Well, the former chairman of the Nigerian Union of Journalists and the executive director of International Press Center, Lanre Arogundade, joins us now from Lagos. And in the studio with us, Rise News analyst and professor of mass communication, Dr. Biodun Adeniyi. Let me start with you, Biodun. By the way, thank you for joining us, Lanre, over there in Lagos. An advertorial has been taken out in the leading newspapers to highlight the danger, according to the newspapers, of passing this bill. What effect do you think this will have?
Well, of course, we know that information is the oxygen of democracy. Information is a precursor to ideation, intellection, the stimulation of thoughts around notions of growth and development. And Nigeria is not North Korea, Nigeria is not China, Nigeria is not Russia. Nigeria is a constitutional democracy where the flow of information is implied, as the case could be. But I need us to also, the pressure style of the concerned groups are welcome, they are in order, consistent with the potency of pressure, in helping to resolve this kind of impasse, as the case could be. But we also have to be concerned about the National Assembly itself. The National Assembly can be seen from two lights: first, as an institution, and secondly, the individuals populating that institution. When we have this kind of bill, what we need to do is to focus on the individuals, who are protagonists of this kind of bill, and use those who are against it. Or definitely we'll have a National Assembly consisting of about 400 and something million people. Yeah. We do not expect that all of them will be on the side of, the aspects of the bill that we consider worrisome. So we have succeeded in working on this in the past, through the social media bill that didn't see the light of the day. This is another instance for us to sustain the pressure to prevent the bills from passing. But we can be done, if we look at the individuals, constituting the National Assembly, isolate the ones who are for it from those who are against it, okay. And use those who are against it to achieve our end.
All right, let me bring in Lanre Arogundade, who is in Lagos there. Lanre, thank you so much for joining us. Well, the House of Reps members, what their argument is, they're saying that the bill was not meant to gag press freedom, but to remove bottlenecks retarding the optimum performance of the NPC, that's the National Press Council, as well as sanitize media practice in the country. I wonder what your thoughts are about that. And some are saying this looks like deja vu. We've been here before. Some are actually comparing this with Decree 4 of 1984.
Well, those who are making the comparison with Decree 4 of 1984 are not totally off the mark, because what you have in these proposed amendments are provisions that will have the ultimate effect of assaulting press freedom, curtailing the rights of citizens to know the truth about how they are being governed, and effectively making it difficult for the media to carry out its constitutional obligation to monitor governance and hold government accountable to the people. So in response to the National Assembly that says, well, they are not gagging the press, they just want regulation. But we're also saying that we do want regulation, But we want a Nigerian Press Council, in the case of that organization, that is truly independent and that is media freedom, friendly. Now, a press council that has the power that will be given the power rather to revoke the licenses of newspapers, to shut down newspapers, to essentially be the accuser, the prosecutor, and the judge in its own case, cannot be media freedom, friendly. And these are the danger signs that we're highlighting to Nigerians. And I'm happy that Nigerian media, represented by the newspapers, took the step they took today, not just for the sake of the media itself, but for the sake, of the public. We're wondering, why there's this attention on the media, why the media should be treated as if we're just a unit of, the Ministry of Information and so on and so forth. So there are very, very strong grounds for us to fear that if these legislations are allowed to pass with these current provisions, then there will be a lot of problems for the media. And in any case, for the broadcast media, the dangers are even more. Because right now, we are now having a situation where it is being proposed that a broadcast station can be shut down, and you have a period of 30 days after you might have been shut down to go to court. This is not, acceptable. So all we're telling the National Assembly members is that, yes, you are right to do this because you have oversight function under Section 88 of the Constitution. But whatever you do must factor in the interests, of the people. And it's not just the media, even the interests of businesses.
Let me comment there. Yeah, let me stay with you before we go to Biodun. Let me stay with you, like I said. Azubike Ishekwane, editor-in-chief, Leadership Newspapers, is arguing that tampering with 17 out of 39 clauses in the proposed MPC Act will be a breach of the Constitution. How so?
Well, because now, when you say that the Nigerian Press Council should start registering newspapers, you are essentially violating Section 39 of the 1999 Constitution that guarantees the right to freedom of expression and to own the medium of expression. That is on the one hand. Then secondly, newspapers, for example, are registered as businesses. Every newspaper is already registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. So it would amount to double registration and double jeopardy, especially where the law itself is seeking to empower the NPC to be able to revoke, the licenses of newspapers. If we look at the proposed amendments to the NBC Act, those ones are even, like I said, constituting a lot of danger posts. So you have a section where, for example, it talks about the capacity of the NBC to impose fines or even shut down stations on the basis of public interest. For me, this is a major contentious issue because they could that means they might just shut you down without providing any explanation. And if you challenge them, they will say, oh, we did it in the public interest. Now, what is the public interest? And who defines the public interest in a democracy? If you ask me, I will say that only those who are elected could actually, define public interest. And not only them, it should also involve, the governed as well. So we as citizens, we are part of governance. The civil society is part of governance. That is why the alternative we're proposed for the Nigerian Press Council Act, for example, is that board must be constituted by representatives of interest groups in the society, not just the media, but the bar association, the women, through their elected representatives, so that they can act in the public interest where they are trying to ensure that the media complies with ethical and professional standards.
Okay, thank you so much, Lanre Arogundade, for joining us, Executive Director, International Press Center. Let me bring it to Biodun Adeniyi here very quickly. With the passage of the Freedom of Information Act, which guarantees the freedom, of information and to seek and to receive information. How does it stand side by side with this? And why do you think this government seems to be intent or bent on, controlling or monitoring the media?
Yeah, I think your question just leads us to some of the concerns, that we've been highlighting around some of these bills and the fact that the bills have not been properly implemented, like the Sunshine Law that you mentioned, the Freedom of Information Bill. We had it, but of course, at the level of information, it's been at the level of implementation, it's been from rather in the breach rather than success. So it's been a problem, really. And now we have
of giving with one hand and taking with the other hand.
Sometimes it may not be an organized attempt, but it's just a tension that happens between authorities and the press. You know what the press represents? It's the watchdog, you know, an eye on the authority, and of course, the authorities naturally will want to hide as much as possible, which runs counter to the function of the press. But the point I'm making is this: it is easier to manage this tension in a democracy. Now, how do we manage it? Engage in National Assembly, you know, isolate, make a distinction between the institution and the people who are occupying it. Work, you know, on those who are in support of the press. You know, I don't want to believe that the entire 400 and something thousand, 100 people will be against freedom of the press. You know, freedom, information is the oxygen of democracy. And as Democrats, whether in theory or in practice, I don't see them being against the greed of a philosophy that is integral to democratic system.
All right, thank you so much. Biodun Adeniyi for joining us, a professor of mass communications, Bayes University.